I am making a Supreme King Odd Eyes deck profile. I'm still working on the ratios, but this is what I currently have, and I honestly am currently enjoying the deck. Which, there's still a few things that need to be tweaked, like I still want to put a couple of cards like Foolish Burial, or, what was it? The spell that lets you send a dragon. If you send a normal, you can send another one. I can't remember what it's called at the moment. But overall, I still like how the deck works, and I will at some point build a pure Odd Eyes deck, which will just take out all the Supreme King cards and toss in more Odd Eyes cards. But starting off with the monsters, I play 3 copies of Supreme King Dragon Lightworm. Lightworm has the effect that when it's summoned, you can take a Supreme King Gate or Dragon monster from your deck and add it to your hand. And then, I believe it does more. I never can remember without reading. Let's see. Is this card on the first line? Okay. Check to your hand and it resolves. Okay, so its effect is when it's normal or special summoned, you can add a Supreme King Dragon or Supreme King Gate that's face up in your extra deck to your hand. And then immediately after it resolves, you can use Lightworm to then summon a Supreme King Dragon Synchro or Xyz monster. Which I want to say, the only downside of this card is that since it is a light monster, I don't believe you can use it to summon Supreme King Dragon Dark Ability. Yeah. The only downside since this is light, you'll have to Synchro Summon if you use that effect, just because it's not dark, and Supreme King Dragon Dark Rebellion requires 2 Dark Pendulums. And then the other effect is if a face-up pendulum monster you control is destroyed, and this card is face-up in your extra deck, you can add it to your hand. And then its pendulum effect. The pendulum effect is that if you pendulum summon a monster while you control Supreme King Zark, you can special summon this card and target one other pendulum monster on your field, and have one of them have their level and attribute match the level and attribute of the other. So you can summon this, and when you pendulum summon something like Odd Eyes Pendulum Dragon, make them both level 7 dark or level 4 light. That is an example. And my favorite thing of this card is just that it's a level 4 tuner. That's pretty much the main thing. And then next I play 3 copies of the best normal summon in the deck, which is 3 copies of Performapal Skullcrabat Joker. Skullcrabat Joker has the effect that when normal summoned, you can then add from your deck to your hand a Performapal, Odd Eyes, or Magician Pendulum monster. And I believe that's it. I've honestly thought about playing Time Tearing Morganite in this deck, just because Skullcrabat Joker is not a once per turn, so if you can normal summon Joker multiple times, you get multiple searches. Then next, I play 3 copies of Supreme King Dragon Darkworm. Darkworm has the effect that when normal or special summoned, you can add a Supreme King Gate monster from your deck to your hand. And if this card's in your graveyard while you control no cards, then you can special summon this card from your graveyard. And then its pendulum effect, it lets you take a Supreme King Gate monster from your deck and place it in your other pendulum zone. So that, however, you are locked into dark, I believe. Just let me check real quick. Yeah. When you use this effect, you're locked into dark. However, normally you aren't putting this in your pendulum scale unless you have a really bad hand. And then next, for 1-ofs, I play 1 copy of Odd Eyes Persona Dragon. Persona Dragon has the effect that once per turn, quick effect, you can target 1 face-up monster on the field that was special summoned from the extra deck and negates effects till the end of the turn. And it was only really in this deck because of the low-scale searchable Odd Eyes, and its pendulum effect. Whoops, did not mean to do that. Return, dragon phase, your opponent activate card effect. Train Odd Eyes pendulum monster you control. Okay, It has the effect that during the end phase, if your opponent activated a card effect that targets actually one odd-eyes pendulum monster you control, and no other cards, you can special summon this card from your pendulum scale. And then you can take and face up odd-eyes pendulum monster in your extra deck and place it in your pendulum zone. Like I said though, this is mainly used just because it's decent scale 1, or if you need to, it's an extra deck negate. And then I play one copy of Supreme King Gate 0. Gate 0 is just in this deck. It's a scale 0 that has the effect of if you control Supreme King Zark, you take no damage. So, and also in case you do need to use Dark Worm's pendulum effect, so that you get a pendulum scale of 1 to 4, but you can't summon unless it's dark, which is the only downside. Then I play one copy of Xion K Magician. Xion K will probably be cut from this deck for... Actually, no, it will be cut from this deck for Foolish Burial, just so you can send Dark Worm, so you can summon it from grave. But Xion K is in this deck because if it's summoned as a monster, once pretending to target a light monster your opponent controls and negates effects, or if it's in the pendulum scale, you can target an Xyz monster you control and have its rank become its level, or have its rank treated as a level. Xion K shouldn't be in this deck because I forgot I took out a monster from the extra deck, being Odd-Eyes Raging Dragon. So, since that's out of the deck, Xion K didn't really need to be here. So, yeah, this will be Foolish Burial in this build. Next, I play two copies of Odd-Eyes Phantom Dragon. Phantom Dragon's one of my favorite Odd-Eyes monsters just because of the fact that it has the effect that when it deals damage, you can then activate its effect to inflict 1,200 points of damage for every Odd-Eyes card in your pendulum scale. So if you have an Odd-Eyes in both scales, and you have Phantom Dragon attack directly, it's going to deal 4,900 points of damage. And its pendulum effect just once per turn. During the damage step, you can target an Odd-Eyes monster you control that's battling, and then give it a 1,200 attack till the end of the turn, or else I believe that's how that works. Turn 1 attack is clear. Odd-Eyes cut. Make that. Okay, yeah, no. Its pendulum effect is when an attack is declared involving a monster you control. If your other card's a pendulum, if your other card in your pendulum zone is an Odd-Eyes, you can have that monster gain 1,200 till the end of the damage step. And then next, I play two copies of Odd-Eyes Pendulum Dragon. Odd-Eyes Pendulum Dragon has the pendulum effect of during the end phase, you can destroy this card, and if you do, add a pendulum monster at 1,500 or less attack from your deck to your hand. And then its monster effect is just if it battles a monster, any battle damage is doubled. It's mainly just in here for some of the extra deck monsters, as they do require Odd-Eyes Pendulum Dragon. Especially one of my favorite ones that I'll get to later. Then for another 2-of, I play two copies of Supreme King Gate Magician. Supreme King Gate Magician has the effect that if you have a Supreme King Gate card in your pendulum scale, except for Supreme King Gate Magician, you can then send a Fusion Dragon, Synchro Dragon, Xyz Dragon, or Pendulum Dragon from your extra deck or deck to the graveyard, special summon it, and then once per turn once the card is special summoned, you can add a card from your deck to your hand that mentions Supreme King Zark. And then its pendulum effect, Supreme King Zark cannot be banished by, or you guys can't be banished, and then once per turn, I believe it is. Okay, during the main phase, you can destroy this card, and if you do, you can take a Supreme King Gate that's in your hand or deck and place it in your pendulum scale. And I believe you can then summon this card. Your pendulum zone, except Supreme King Gate Magician. So yeah, it's just, honestly, I don't ever really use it for its pendulum effect. I mainly just use it for its effect to add any card from your deck to your hand that mentions Supreme King Zark. And since it's level 7, it perfectly fits with your usual pendulum scale of 1 and 8. So you can just pendulum summon it, add one of your cards that mention Supreme King Zark, and then just proceed. Next, And then for the last one of I play is, or the last one, for this group, the only last one I play is the one copy of Perform Palette Oddities Dissolver. This is just in this deck because when you pendulum summon it, you can activate its effect to then be able to fusion summon using it and another monster you control. Or you can place it in your pendulum scale and be able to just once per turn fusion summon. Next, I play 3 copies of Odd-Eyes Arc Pendulum Dragon. Odd-Eyes Arc Pendulum Dragon has the pendulum effect that once per turn, if an Odd-Eyes card you control is destroyed, you can special summon an Odd-Eyes monster from your deck or graveyard. Which is, honestly, in the pure version, I would use this to bring back Odd-Eyes Gravity Dragon whenever my opponent would get rid of it, because it's just a constant pay 5 to do things. But Odd-Eyes Arc Pendulum Dragon is a normal monster, so it doesn't really have an effect if you put it on the field. And for 3 more 1-ofs, I play 1 copy of Odd-Eyes Phantasma Dragon, 1 copy of Lancer Dragon, and 1 copy of Supreme King Dragon Odd-Eyes. Supreme King Dragon Odd-Eyes has the effect that when it battles a monster, I believe, if your pendulum monster battles an opponent's monster, any battle damage inflicted to your opponent is doubled. And then during the battle phase, quick effect, you contribute this card, special summon up to 2 Supreme King Dragon and or Supreme King Gate monsters from your extra deck in defense position, except for Supreme King Dragon Odd-Eyes. Yeah. So this is mainly just here so that if you attack with Odd-Eyes Pendulum Dragon, the damage your opponent takes is quadrupled instead of doubled, as the 2 doublings do stack. And then Odd-Eyes Lancer Dragon has the effect that if a card or cards you control be destroyed by battle or card effect, you can destroy 1 Odd-Eyes card you can, or I believe you control in your hand. My bad. If it's a pendulum monster you control, you contribute on monsters. But the pendulum monster you control is destroyed by battle card effect, you contribute 1 monster, special card from your hand. If this card attacks, your opponent can activate any spells or traps until the end of the damage step. And if an Odd-Eyes card or cards you control be destroyed by battle or card effect, you can destroy an Odd-Eyes card in your hand, monster zone, or pendulum zone instead. Usually this is what's first summoned off of Odd-Eyes Arc Pendulum Dragon, as this is just another thing you can use as protection. And, well, it's also for 3,000 body. Anyway, Odd-Eyes Phantasma Dragon has the pendulum effect that once per turn you can discard card to then add a pendulum monster that's face up in your extra deck to your hand. And then its monster effect. The monster effect is this deck's way of being able to get over big monsters that can't be targeted or destroyed by card effects. As Odd-Eyes Phantasma Dragon has the effect that if you have 2 cards in your pendulum zone and an Odd-Eyes face up in your extra deck and special summon it, you can't pendulum summon from your exit effect, which is fine, because normally if you're summoning this, it's going to be off of Arc Ray Dragon's effect. And then it has the effect that when it battles a monster during damage calculation, you can have that opponent's monster lose 1,000 attack for every face-up pendulum monster in your extra deck. So, normally if I'm summoning this, I usually have like 7 or 8. So that's 7 or 8,000 attack points lost. And then to finish off the monsters, I play 3 copies of Odd-Eyes Revolution Dragon. Revolution Dragon really doesn't do anything in this deck besides being able to discard it, pay 500 to add a level 8 or lower dragon pendulum monster from your deck to your hand, which is most of your monsters. And then for the spells, I play 1 copy of Pendulum Evolution. Pendulum Evolution has the effect that you can shuffle a pendulum monster from your hand into the deck to then be able to add a pendulum monster with a different name from your deck to your hand. And then it also has the effect that if you summon a pendulum monster from the extra deck immediately after this effect resolves, you can pendulum summon a monster or monsters. And then once per turn, you can target a Supreme King Zark you control. So this is searchable off of Supreme King Gate Magician. To then be able to have Zark be able to attack all monsters your opponent controls once each. Then I also play 3 copies of Wings of Light. Wings of Light has the effect that during the main phase, you can add a Supreme King Dragon or Supreme King Gate Pendulum monster from your deck to your hand, or if you control Supreme King Zark, you can special summon it instead. You can only activate one Wings of Light per turn. So normally, if you're using this, you would have it search Supreme King Gate Magician, or if you control Zark, you would then use it to summon Supreme King Dragon Darkworm or Lightworm. As usual, you're using the... well, I already forgot what it was called. Pendulum Evolution to put Supreme King Gate 0 back into your deck. Then I play 3 copies of Sky Iris. Sky Iris just has the effect that your opponent cannot target Magician, Perform Pal, or Odd Eyes cards in your Pendulum Zone with card effects. And once per turn, you can destroy 1 card on your field. Let's see. If you target a face-up card you can control... My bad. You target one other face-up card you control, destroy it if you do it, an Odd Eyes card from deck to hand. You can use that effect of Sky Iris once per turn. Then I play 3 copies of Spiral Flame Strike, where you can use one of 2 effects, where you can either add an Odd Eye, or if you control an Odd Eyes card, you can target 1 card in the field and destroy it, or you can add a level 7 Odd Eyes from deck to hand. You can add a level 7 Odd Eyes from deck or face up extra deck to hand. The main thing I like about this is that it's not once per turn, so you can just use it to destroy a card. If you have multiples and search, you can get multiple searches, you can get multiple destructions. It's not once per turn, so I love this card. Speaking of once per turn, I play 2 copies of Duelist Alliance. Duelist Alliance, just if you have a card in your Pendulum Zone, lets you add a card that has Pendulum in its name from your deck to your hand. You can activate 1 per turn. Then I play 3 copies of Odd Eyes Fusion. Odd Eyes Fusion can only be activated once per turn, but it has the effect that you can fusion summon a dragon-type fusion monster from your extra deck using monsters from your hand or field as material. And if your opponent controls 2 or more monsters, and you control no monsters, you can also use up to 2 Odd Eyes monsters from your extra deck. So one thing I like to do with this is, at one point with this deck, I was using Miracle Synchro Fusion to summon Zark. I loved Odd Eyes Fusion in this deck just because, at that point at least, just by summoning a Vortex Dragon, you can get 3 of the 4 materials to summon Zark. And then for the last 2, I play 1 copy of Soulless Supreme Celestial King and 1 copy of Miracle of Supreme King. Soul of the Supreme Celestial King has the effect where you contribute a spellcaster monster that has 2,500 or more attack. My bad. 2,500 original attack. I don't know why I keep thinking it says or more. So with this, you just distribute the Supreme King Gate Magician to then be able to fusion summon a Supreme King Zark from your extra deck by banishing fusion materials from your hand, deck, extra deck, or field, and or graveyard, but its effects are negated unless you used all 4 of the dimensional dragons, or technically, the effects are negated unless you used a Pendulum Dragon, Fusion Dragon, Synchro Dragon, and Xyz Dragon. Which, in this deck, is the 4 dimensional dragons, but if you were to use them in a Pendulum Magician deck, then you can just banish the Magicians. And you can only activate 1 Soul of the Supreme Celestial King per turn. And then Miracle of the Supreme King can only be activated if you control Zark, but if you do, you can activate 1 of 3 effects, where you can destroy a Supreme King Zark you control. And if you do, special summon an Odd Eyes Pendulum monster or a light Supreme King Zark from your deck or extra deck, ignoring summoning conditions. You can place a face-up Pendulum monster from your extra deck in your Pendulum Zone, or you can set a quick play spell directly from your deck. Normally, what you'll do with this is either the first or second effects, where you can destroy Zark, summon Odd Eyes Archray Dragon, but you'll only ever do that if you have an open Pendulum Zone, which I'll get to later because you will put Zark in your Pendulum Zone. But that is it for the main deck. The main deck is 45 cards. It might go up to 47 or 48, depending on how many copies of the Dragon Shrine, that's what it was, Depending on how many copies of Dragon Shrine I end up wanting to add to the deck so that Supreme King Dragon Darkworm can actually be effective. And moving on to the extra deck, I play one copy of Beyond the Pendulum. Beyond the Pendulum has the effect that when summoned, you can pay 1200 life points to add a Pendulum monster from your deck to your hand. However, if you use this effect, all your cards and effects are negated until you Pendulum summon. So if you're going to summon this, you'll want to do it before you Pendulum summon, just because if you do it after, then you won't have any card effects till the end of the turn. Then I also play one copy of Clear Wing Synchro Dragon and one copy of Odd Eyes Meteor Burst Dragon. Clear Wing Synchro Dragon is in this deck because it's one of the dimensional dragons for Soul of the Supreme Celestial King. But it's also a decent monster, as if your opponent activates a monster effect of a level 5 or higher monster, you can negate that effect, and if you do, destroy it. Or your opponent activates a monster effect that would target a level 5 or higher monster you control, you can negate that effect, and if you do, destroy it. And then if this effect destroys a monster, Supreme King, Clear Wing Synchro Dragon gains that destroyed monster's attack until the end of the turn. And then Meteor Burst Dragon has the effect that you can activate the effect when summoned to target a monster in your Pendulum Zone and special summon it. And then during the battle phase, your opponent can't use any monster effects. Then I also play one copy of Supreme King Dragon Clear Wing. Clear Wing has the effect that when synchro summoned, destroy all face-up monsters your opponent controls. And then if Clear Wing battles a monster, you can activate its effect just before damage calculation, to then be able to destroy that monster. If you do, your opponent takes damage equal to that monster's original attack. Or as I believe it's the original attack. It might be its attack on field. Yeah. It just deals damage equal to the original attack, and then if it's in the graveyard, you contribute 2 Supreme King Dragon monsters, special summon it. And then for the Xyz monsters, I play one copy of Dark Rebellion Xyz Dragon, one Supreme King Dragon Dark Rebellion. Dark Rebellion, again, is in this deck because it is one of the dimensional dragons, but it has the effect where you can detach 2 materials, target a monster your opponent controls, and steal half of that monster's attack. And then Supreme King Dragon Dark Rebellion has the effect that once per turn, when it battles a monster, you can detach material to then reduce that monster's attack to 0, and then Dark Rebellion gains attack equal to that monster's original attack until the end of the turn. And then it has a similar effect as Clear Wing. Let's see. During the battle phase, you can return this card to the extra deck, special summon 2 face-up Supreme King Dragon and or Supreme King Gate Pendulum monsters from your extra deck in defense position. Which that effect won't really ever be used unless you control the Beyond the Pendulum, just because these cards were kind of hurt as Lynx kind of ruined how Pendulums used to work, as they could just be Pendulum summoned from hand or extra deck to a main monster zone. But with Lynx, Pendulum kind of got hurt a bit, which, as much as I love Pendulum, it was kind of needed because Pendulum was a kind of overpowered mechanic at that time. Anyway, moving on to the rest of the Xyz monsters, I play one copy of Odd Eyes Rebellion Dragon Overlord, one Odd Eyes Rebellion Dragon, and one Odd Eyes Absolute Dragon. Absolute Dragon has the effect that when an attack is declared, you can detach material, negate the attack, and then special summon an Odd Eyes from your graveyard. And then if Absolute Dragon leaves the field, you can then special summon an Odd Eyes monster from your extra deck. Odd Eyes Rebellion Dragons only have really in this deck, so you can use it as a stepping stone for Odd Eyes Rebellion Dragon Overlord. And then Odd Eyes Rebellion Dragon Overlord has the effect that you can also Pendulum summon this card if you can Pendulum summon level 7. And then if it was summoned, you can also Xyz summon it by using a Rebellion Xyz monster you control. So you just place it on top of Odd Eyes Rebellion Dragon. And then if it was XE summoned using a pendulum monster, or an XE's pendulum monster, I believe. Let's see. XE summoned using a rank 7 XE's monster. Yeah, if it was XE summoned using a rank 7 XE's monster, you can make up to 3 attacks on monsters during the battle phase. And then if this card in the monster zone is destroyed, you can place this card in your pendulum zone. And you can only special summon Auto-Eyes Rebellion Dragon Overlord once per turn. And its pendulum effect is once per turn, you can special summon this card from your pendulum zone, then special summon from your extra deck 1 Rebellion or the Phantom Knights monster using this card's material. This is treated as an XE summon, and then you can attach 1 card in your pendulum zone to it as material. Which, you don't really ever use that pendulum effect. Mainly if it's being destroyed, you'll just send it back to the extra deck so you can pendulum summon it back later. But the main thing is that you just use it to be able to have 3k attacking 3 monsters. And then for the fusions, I play 2 copies of Odd-Eyes Vortex Dragon. Vortex Dragon is an Omni-Negate, but that shuffles back a pendulum from your face-up extra deck. And then when special summoned, you can target 1 card. Actually, I think it has to be a specific card. Okay, yeah. When it's special summoned, once per turn, you can target 1 face-up attack position monster your opponent controls, return it to the hand. And you can only use each effect of Vortex Dragon once per turn. Then I play 1 copy of Starving Venom Fusion Dragon. Again, it's a dimensional dragon, but it is still useful as when it's fusion summoned, you can target 1 special monster your opponent controls against that monster's attack until the end of the turn. And then its fusion summoned monster you control is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can activate its effect to destroy all special summoned monsters on the field. Of course, I believe that's this one. That might be Greedy Venom Fusion Dragon. Let's see. Okay, it destroys all special summon monsters your opponent controls. So yeah, Greedy Venom is all, and then it summons itself back. Then I also play 1 copy of Rune-Eyes Pendulum Dragon. Rune-Eyes is one of my favorite of the fusion monsters in this deck. And it's really the main reason why Odd-Eyes Dissolver Dragon's still in here. But Rune-Eyes has the effect that if it was fusion summoned using monsters that are pendulum summoned, it's unaffected by card effects that turn. And then it gets a number attack on monsters, depending on the level of spellcaster used for its summoning, as it requires Odd-Eyes Pendulum Dragon and its spellcaster. If you use a level, level 4 or lower, it gets 2 attacks on monsters, and if you use level 5 or higher, it gets 3 attacks on monsters. And that's all Rune-Eyes does, but it's still one of my favorite of the fusion monsters. And then I also play 1 copy of Supreme King Zark. Supreme King Zark has the effect that when it's fusion summoned, you destroy all cards your opponent controls. It cannot be targeted or destroyed by card effects. If it destroys a monster at battle, you can then special summon a Supreme King Dragon from your extra deck, hand, or deck. I want to say you can also summon from graveyard. Okay, no, you summon a Supreme King Dragon from your deck or extra deck, and then this card in the monster zone is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can place this card in the pendulum zone. Whereas pendulum effect is that it just negates the effects of all monsters that are... It just negates all your opponent's fusion, synchro, and XE effects. And once per turn, your opponent adds a card or cards from their deck to their hand, you can destroy 1 of those cards. So it's really fun for if your opponent's needs a card in their hand, they search for that specific card, and then you just destroy it with Zark. And then, for the finish off the extra deck, I play 1 copy of Odd-Eyes Archray. Odd-Eyes Archray Dragon has the effect that you can... This card, when it's summoned from your extra deck face down, it either has to be fusion summoned or special summoned by tributing a level 12 Dark Supreme King Zark you control. And then when special summoned, you can take a card from your deck and place it in your pendulum zone, I believe. Let's see, where is it? If this card is special summoned from the extra deck, you can place a pendulum monster from your deck to your pendulum zone. And if it's this card in the monster zone is destroyed, you can place this card in your pendulum zone. Where its pendulum effect is if you have 2 cards in your pendulum zones, you can press on this card, then apply its effect. Shuffle a card from your pendulum zone into the deck, then it was added to the extra deck, and you can special summon it, ignoring its summoning conditions. So normally what you'll do is you will use Miracle of the Supreme King, destroy Zark, summon this, Zark goes to your pendulum zone, and then if this gets destroyed, you put in your pendulum scale, activates pendulum effect, summon it, put Zark back, summon back Zark. So this deck just has a bunch of ways where it can just murder your opponent really fast, which is part of the reason why I really like the Odd Eyes archetype so much, which is why I thought I'll combine it with Zark, because I was really hurting my head, honestly, trying to figure out how to get Pendulum Magician to work with Zark. But that is it for the deck profile. If you have any ideas what you can do to improve the deck, any ideas for decks like to see made in the future, or decks like to see face each other, feel free to comment down below, and thanks for watching.